Hi, my name is Jessica Duncan. I'm a settler living in Quechua territory on the traditional land of the Welleday Yellowknives Dene. I'll be reading the section of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission summary report entitled Education and the Income Gap. It can be found on pages 193 to 195. It's not surprising that faced with terrible conditions and mostly ineffective teaching, many students left school as soon as they could. A 2010 study of Aboriginal parents and children living off reserves found that the high school completion rate is lower for former residential school students, 28%, than for those who did not attend, 36%. Only 7% of the parents who attended residential school have obtained a university degree, compared with 10% of those Aboriginal parents who had never attended these institutions. Although secondary school graduation rates for all Aboriginal people have improved since the closure of the schools, considerable gaps remain when compared with the rates for the non-Aboriginal population. For example, according to the 2006 census, 34% of Aboriginal adults had not graduated from high school, compared with only 15% of their non-Aboriginal counterparts. In the 2011 census, these numbers improved slightly, with 29% of Aboriginal people not graduating from high school, compared with 12% in the non-Aboriginal population. It is significant that the lowest levels of educational success are in those communities with the highest percentage of descendants of residential school survivors, First Nations people living on reserves and Inuit. Both groups have a high school completion rate of 41% or less. The statistics for First Nations people living off reserves and for Métis are somewhat better. More than 60% of First Nations living off reserves and 65 to 75% of Métis people have graduated from high school, although these results are still below the national average. Lower educational attainment for the children of survivors has severely limited their employment and earning potential, just as it did for their parents. Aboriginal people have lower median after-tax income, are more likely to experience unemployment, and are more likely to collect employment insurance and social assistance benefits. This situation is true for all Aboriginal groups, with some variations. In 2009, the Métis unemployment rate for persons aged 24 to 54 was 9.4%, while the non-Aboriginal rate was 7%. In 2006, the Inuit unemployment rate was 19%. The true rates of unemployment for people living on reserves are difficult to ascertain because of limited data collection. Aboriginal people also have incomes well below their non-Aboriginal counterparts. The median income for Aboriginal people in 2006 was 30% lower than the median income for non-Aboriginal workers, $18,962 versus $27,097 respectively. The gap narrows when Aboriginal people obtain a university degree, which they do at a far lower rate. Not surprisingly, the child poverty rate for Aboriginal children is also very high, 40% compared with 17% for all children in Canada. The income gap is pervasive. Non-Aboriginal Canadians earn more than Aboriginal workers, no matter whether they work on reserves, off reserves, or in urban, rural, or remote locations. The proportion of Aboriginal adults below the poverty line, regardless of age and gender, is much higher than that of non-Aboriginal adults, with differences ranging from 7.8% for adult men aged 65 or older to 22.5% for adult women aged 65 and older. The depth of poverty is also much greater, with Aboriginal people having an average income that falls further below the poverty line on average than that of non-Aboriginal adults, and their poverty is more likely to have persisted for a significant period of time. This section also includes a call to action, number 7, which states, "We call upon the federal government to develop with Aboriginal groups a joint strategy to eliminate educational and employment gaps between non-Aboriginal and Aboriginal Canadians." That concludes my section. Thank you so much to Erica Violet Lee, Zoe Todd, and Joseph Paul Murdoch Flowers for organizing this initiative.